Good morning, everyone. I'm very, very pleased to be asked to come and speak to you this morning. And actually, as it turns out, my presentation is going to be almost a summary of what we just had in this panel discussion, completely by coincidence. It wasn't by design, but just a little bit about myself. I'm Prakash Senghani. I'm part of what we call digital project delivery in AECOM. We started off as the BIM Center, but over the last year or so, we realized that BIM is a part of what we do, and it forms more broadly into the digital space and in terms of digital delivery. And I think the panel discussion that we just had highlights that very well. So 2 years ago, I was just like you, sitting in the audience, wide-eyed and eager, and listening to the trends and what's happening. And it's amazing to see the transition and the progress that we've made in BIM over these last 2 years. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of those things. In terms of, sorry, is this working? There you go. In terms of just an agenda about what we're going to be talking about over the next 10 to 15 minutes, some of the digital trends, we've just touched on most of them in the panel discussion that we just had. The progress and the current state of BIM in the Middle East, some of the challenges and the opportunities that this presents to us, and what BIM is in the future. So as you can see, the topic perfectly summarizes what we just heard. Now, in terms of the current trends in construction, most companies, and I'm sure that in the organizations that you're working on, are currently have some sort of digital transformation initiatives. Within AECOM, we've got a digital transformation initiative which is basically looking at two aspects: the internal aspects in making our own processes more efficient and delivering internal value, and then there's the outward facing, using digital tools to help enhance our service offerings and products that we give to our clients. We've broadly categorized this into four categories. There's digital engineering, data capture and storage, modern construction techniques, and immersive technologies. This trend is driven by many of the factors that Farah presented right at the beginning of her presentation. The lack of productivity growth in the construction industry, the fact that our projects tend to always be late and over budget. All of these factors are driving digital innovation and digital transformation programs within organizations all around the world. There's a growing body of evidence that these digital tools are delivering value to our organizations. So what I want to demonstrate is that most of the digital transformations and the digital tools that our companies are looking at are actually underpinned by BIM. So we take, for example, virtual reality as an example. It's being used more and more prevalently to demonstrate design intent, to take users and test user experiences, to validate design assumptions, to carry out training. The assets that are being used within these virtual reality environments are mostly derived from BIM, or the most effective and efficient way of getting to these virtual reality environments is to use BIM assets. Similarly, augmented reality is enhancing our view of the real world using digital assets that are being built up for other purposes, and those purposes being BIM. In terms of AI and machine learning, which we just heard about, there's parametric design and generative design, which is allowing our designers to create multiple versions and choices very, very quickly and making the whole process more efficient. All of these tools are currently being built on top of BIM software and BIM platforms. Modular and 3D printing, they're areas which are going to impact the actual construction of our projects. And these, again, are being enhanced and only being made possible through BIM environments. You couldn't go and 3D print something if you didn't have a 3D model of it in the first place. You couldn't print something efficiently and well if it wasn't coordinated and well designed. And then there's the cloud and the mobile. The BIM models are slowly becoming put out into the wild, if you like. They're moving from the offices and design houses and into the construction sites using cloud and mobile technologies. So if we assume, and I think it's very rarely if we assume that digital transformation is going to change our industry and that BIM is underpinning the whole of digital transformation, so I just wanted to have a look at what that means for us in the Middle East. So in terms of BIM in the Middle East, we've made massive strides in the deployment and development of BIM. Here in Dubai, the mandate from the Dubai municipality massively helped the deployment and the adoption of BIM in consulting and in design. The mandate requires deliverables to be, in order for designs to get approved. And this has naturally driven the skills and the capability of our industry. Whereas when I first came to the region about 5 years ago, the BIM was something that was done in a dark corner and done by a few specialists, whereas now the talent pool has increased massively. And we're quite lucky as well in the fact that we live in close proximity to some low-cost centers, which has helped drive the development, both in terms of costs, but also in terms of the size of the talent pool that's available to us. And then finally, and I think this is probably the most important thing I've seen especially in the last 12 to 9 months, is the adoption of BIM by the contractors. Now, this has been more important because it hasn't been mandated to them. It's not being forced upon them. Contractors have realized the benefits of BIM and realized the value of BIM on their own account, which means that arguably more value is being derived from the use of BIM than during the design. And it is my strong opinion that actually the biggest area that will gain value from BIM is actually in the operations. So, and in order for you to get sufficient data into operations, you need to have it curated and managed throughout all aspects of a project's life cycle. And so it's very so these are some of the trends that we're seeing in the Middle East. And this is underscored by a report that came out from Dodge Analytics. Actually, at the time, when it was released in 2017, it sort of went under the radar. I've not seen a lot of people been talking about it, and it hasn't been publicized. But there's some really interesting points. This was a study done with about 140 designers and contractors in the region. And there's some interesting statistics. We talked about in the panel the lack of statistics that we have in the Middle East to do with BIM adoption and where the values come from. And here was an empirical study done asking about people's thoughts and opinions, very anecdotal, but very strong in terms of the perceptions. Now, it's a big report, and I encourage all of you to go and have a look at it, because it will help justify some of the use cases and business cases. But just a few highlights is that going forward, a vast majority of the people who aren't using BIM at the moment are saying that they are going to. 85% of non-BIM users are saying that they're either planning to or are already actively looking at how they can bring BIM into their workflows. And the amount of BIM use is the amount of companies saying that in the next 2 years, they'll be using BIM on a majority of their projects in the various different regions is massive. The other interesting part of this report is the effect that the BIM mandate has had in the region in the UAE compared to other areas like KSA. So we can see that BIM is progressing really well in the Middle East, but there are obviously some challenges. Now, some of these challenges were touched upon earlier this morning, but one of the biggest ones is the negative impact that specifying BIM poorly has on the deployment and the successful delivery of BIM. So project managers, clients, consultants not specifying BIM very well, or specifying it inadequately has a big effect on the success of BIM delivery and the perception of the success of that BIM delivery. Some of the other challenges that are cited within this report include things like there's no standard way of deriving an ROI, for example. There isn't a standard metric for people to measure. It's left down to individuals, which means that capturing the data is difficult in a consistent way, but then also analyzing and presenting that information is very difficult. One of the other big obstacles that we face is the legal frameworks. Currently, there's not a single legal framework in the world that I've come across which addresses BIM adequately. FIDIC was renewed last year. There was a second edition of the FIDIC Rainbow books that came out in 2017. And even they, in my opinion, missed an opportunity to address BIM. They only mentioned it as a special advisory note and didn't include it in any of their, in their white book or their green book or their pink book, any of these. They didn't include it in any of their contractual information. Now, I come across this all the time, where there's clients are asking what happens to design liability as models get transferred into construction. What happens when there's a major design change if the contractor has already taken over custodianship of it? What takes precedence, whether it's the drawings or the models? And then once it's transferred into operations, what happens with the IP that's been generated along the way? So all of these things are something that we as an industry need to be talking about and coming up with a common approach, because at the moment, because the contractual frameworks, whether it be FIDIC or NEC, they don't address this. It's being left to individual projects and individual clients to come up with their own way of doing something, and which is not necessarily best for the industry as a whole. And then finally, the importance of EIRs, employment information requirements. So clients need to understand that setting these up at the beginning of their BIM journey or of a digital transformation journey is very, very important, to set out the requirements, to set out the objectives, to set out the goals, to make sure that everybody's working from a level playing field and from a common workbook. And expressing and educating our clients of the importance of these documents, I think is a big challenge, especially in some of the new geographies, which equally provides opportunities, right? So the Dodge Analytics report highlights the sort of disparity between levels of maturity in the UAE compared to other regions with other areas within our region. KSA, as I'm sure you've all read, have got some ambitious plans, and every client that we're speaking to at the moment in KSA is talking about digital. And going back to my earlier slides, if digital, the foundation of digital is based on BIM. BIM is going to be very, very important in shaping how that looks and the success of all of these capital delivery projects that are happening in KSA. So there's huge opportunities for us to take the lessons learned that we've captured over here and make sure we start off doing some of the things right from the very beginning. Another huge opportunity is the common data environment. Now, I think there's probably two camps in the common data environment conversation. There's one where people think that it's got to be one platform and everything's got to be feeding into it. I personally am of the opinion that the common data environment is a set of tools that are underpinned by robust processes on how to transfer information from one tool to the other. It's more about using the right tool for the right job. But at the moment, there's no common consensus, and that's driving inefficiencies in how we transfer data, especially in this region, because we work with such geographically dispersed teams. So you might have your design team sitting in one location, your production teams sitting in a different location, and your management team sitting in a different location. And for them to effectively communicate and transfer information reliably and quickly is very important. We've got internally got teams working in all over the world, and sometimes copying information when it comes down to submission time takes days. Even in this day and age, with our super fast broadband connections, it's taken an inordinate amount of time to transfer information for the simple part of actually doing the submissions. So I think that's an important area. And then the final opportunity I think we have is pushing BIM into the construction and utilizing it for more than just coordination. Like the BIM mandate has done for design, where it's become a deliverable for the local authorities, I think that there's an area within construction, in the actual construction phase, to transfer models and make them a deliverable, to get things like civil defense approval, to get make them a deliverable for structural inspections from your local authorities, and things like that. And then in terms of what does the future hold? So for me, this is BIM. It doesn't exist anymore. If we're successful, then BIM as a discipline, as a function, would have been integrated into everything that we do. It just becomes business as usual. I think we've talked about it previously, where the role of the BIM manager or the BIM coordinator or BIM X, Y, and Z would basically not exist as a separate discipline in its own right, but would be merged into everything that we do. So an interesting anecdote. Last week, I went to a project to meet one of our new project directors. And he's fairly new to the region. He's come from the UK, but he started asking me questions about, okay, what's in our employer information requirements? What does the ELOD say? What does the ILOD say? And this is a conversation that I've never had with a senior management on any project. Most of the time, anything to do with BIM, every time BIM comes up in a specification or contract document, it just gets pushed to the BIM team. Right? They don't take the time to understand it and to know it. But what was really refreshing is that he clearly understood what the requirements, what BIM meant, and actually what he should be asking about and what things should be in place. And I think that that's the future. That is our leadership and the leaders in our industry will understand BIM and know what to ask and what to do with it, rather than just push it down to somebody and it becomes a discipline in its own right. And within AECOM, BIM is going to be enabling us to meet our aspirations of creating an industry without limits. Right? It's using all of these digital tools underpinned by technology to push the limits of what we do, to push the limits in terms of how high and fast and safe we can build, but also in terms of quality. And that's it. Thank you very much.